Well, with the playing of that familiar theme song, ladies and gentlemen, we go out to the left coast of the United States and hang out for a little time with Michael Snyder. He tells us all about the movies that are coming out this weekend. Hello, Michael.
Hi, Alex, and greetings, America, and all the ships at sea and beyond. And speaking of beyond, this weekend sees the opening of Thor Ragnarok. How was that for a segue? It was the best I could do.
Yeah.
Funny and colorful and kind of exploding with special effects battles and general frenzy and other dimensions and outer space and on an alien planet. Thor Ragnarok is the third movie in the Thor superhero franchise within the ginormous interconnected Marvel Comics movie and TV universe, as has been the case in all the movies where the character shows up, including the Avengers hero team-up movies. This features the genial and, he's a swaggering, handsome fellow, the Aussie actor Chris Hemsworth as Thor, who is the Norse god of thunder, the man who wields, the god who wields the mighty hammer Mjolnir. Anyway, Ragnarok is also, like the Avengers films, a team-up movie because it follows up on the whereabouts of the Hulk, the big green behemoth, the tortured, super strong Jekyll and Hyde character, played here by Mark Ruffalo in both human and motion capture form. Anyway, this time out, Thor wants to save his home realm, Asgard, domain of the Norse gods and the godlings, from the banished sister he never knew, Hela, goddess of death, who is brought to life by a perfectly over-the-top Cate Blanchett. And also, he wants to do battle against his nefarious adopted brother, Loki, god of mischief, who was again played in hilarious fashion by Tom Hiddleston. It's Ragnarok, you see, which is forecast in legends as the end of Asgard and the end of the rule of the gods. But before Thor can marshal his hammer and defend the realm, he's banished to a battle world overseen by a smug lunatic named the Grandmaster, who, again, in perfect casting, is played by Jeff Goldblum. I mean, the guy is hilarious. Anyway, Thor doesn't have a chance to save Asgard unless he goes up against the local champion in the big arena, and the champion happens to be Thor's fellow Avenger, the Hulk, who's been missing in action for a couple movies. Anyway, Tessa Thompson from Westworld is introduced as a hard-drinking, sword-slinging Valkyrie. Anthony Hopkins returns to the series as Odin, Lord of Asgard. But the real MVP of the film is New Zealand director Taika Waititi, whose two previous movies, the low-budget Vampires in New Zealand mockumentary What We Do in the Shadows, and also a very whimsical Outback family comedy called Hunt for the Wilder People, didn't really prepare me for how effective his approach would be to a superhero blockbuster. I mean, you get quips and visual gags, like self-mocking jokes, Easter eggs for fans, standalone fun, and the look is epic and straight out of a comic book drawn by the great Jack Kirby, who co-created this version of Thor with Stan Lee, king of comics, I guess, self-proclaimed. Before things get a little exhausting, something shiny or exciting or clever happens, or one of the fine actors in the movie has a moment that's just dead on. Thor Ragnarok can stand on its own as at least as funny a superhero film as Deadpool, and also moves the Marvel saga and a few of its main characters forward. And as far as I'm concerned, that's downright super. Yeah, did you see where I went there? Okay, let's go elsewhere for a second. Let's get serious with LBJ. LBJ deals with a very tumultuous period in American history. It's built around one of the great tragedies the country has faced and one of its most unexpected and somewhat divisive leaders. LBJ, Lyndon Baines Johnson, was the guy who succeeded President Kennedy after Kennedy's assassination. And LBJ is part docudrama and part biopic about this man. He was a no-nonsense Texas senator who, after wheeling and dealing, ended up being the vice president on the Kennedy ticket in 1960. And he, again, had to assume the mantle of president after Kennedy was killed in 1963. Now, LBJ is well played by, of all people, Woody Harrelson, who has that Southern thing down, but he's laboring under a bunch of prosthetics that sometimes look good. Sometimes you go, oh, wow, and then other times look like maybe the Disney animatronic of LBJ. And, you know, I saw a film that's going to come out soon called Darkest Hour that stars Gary Oldman as Winston Churchill. He's also under a bunch of prosthetics, but you never see it. That's how good the work was in Darkest Hour and how questionable it is in LBJ. Anyway, Harrelson does his best, and the conflicts that are faced by Johnson are all really significant, and some of them are still chillingly relevant today, including racism, an unpopular war, economic disparity in what is the richest country in the world, and of course, trying to heal the nation after the assassination. It's directed in workmanlike fashion by Rob Reiner. I don't think of it as a great film. The supporting players, including Jennifer Jason Leigh as Lady Bird, Johnson's wife, and one of Johnson's adversaries, Bobby Kennedy, is played by Michael Stahl David, and he's good in this. Richard Jenkins, the crux of it is that Johnson, this guy from the South, was instrumental in the Civil Rights Act of 64, and that's wonderful and everything, but it still doesn't make for the great movie you kind of hope when you're dealing with the character from history as important as LBJ. It's probably worth watching on video. Okay, one of my favorite modern filmmakers is Richard Linklater, who is best known for his coming-of-age movies that are sometimes jocular, like Dazed and Confused, and sometimes serious, like Boyhood. And he also did the romantic, really conversational relationship trilogy Before Sunrise, Before Sunset, and Before Midnight, all films I dug. Last Flag Flying is a change of pace for Linklater. His most recent movies were kind of hilarious and charming. There's the college comedy Everybody Wants Some, and of course Boyhood that won Oscars. So you don't really expect something like this, which is a very personal and intimate drama about Doc, a former Navy corpsman, reuniting with ex-Marine buddies. All these guys are Vietnam vets. After years spent apart because Doc's son has died. He's a young Marine killed in the Iraq War. Doc wants to bury the son with his friends around him. So the movie revolves around this very conversational and eventful road trip and works well because of its stars. Steve Carell is the dad. Bryan Cranston is Sal, who's now a bar owner, and Lawrence Fishburne is Mueller, who, despite having a salty backstory, is now a very unlikely minister. There are some circumstances that seem a bit unlikely or forced as these long-estranged comrades find themselves facing unexpected roadblocks on the journey, especially the specter of their war and also the one that took the life of Doc's son. But the actors in Linklater's direction make it work. Linklater and the author of the book that this is based on, Darryl Ponnickson, collaborated on the screenplay. And it's a solid movie, even if it's not one of Linklater's best. There are great performances and first-rate dialogue. There's humor and a moving, dramatic arc. That's enough to make Last Flag Flying a recommend. Let's just wrap up quickly with Blade of the Immortal, which is the latest film from the Japanese writer, director, actor, fantastic talent, Takeshi Miike. And here he plays a samurai who's killed many, many people. Sometimes these are good people, sometimes these are bad people. And now he's considered a criminal. He's on the run. It's feudal Japan. And plus, he's immortal. But he has to kill as many people who are evil as he can to finally have his life reach an end. And so he ends up being this bodyguard for this girl. And, this is one of those kind of, it's not a buddy picture. It's like kind of a, parent-child thing, but it also has the action and the incredibly exciting visuals. I like a good samurai movie. I don't know about you. Blade of the Immortal is a really good one. And if you like this kind of beautifully choreographed violence and slinging of the swords, man, get on board with Blade of the Immortal. I didn't have a chance to see A Bad Mom's Christmas. I'm kind of happy about that on some level. I wasn't crazy about the first film. And I'm looking forward to a movie called Lady Bird, which doesn't open beyond New York and L.A. this weekend. Haven't had a chance to catch it, but will. What are you watching? What are you up to, buddy?
Nothing.
No films? No TV shows?
No.
That's kind of sad. You must be doing something out there.
No.
Okay, well, we'll leave it at that. You can catch me on Twitter at Culture Blaster, and also on Facebook at Michael Snyder's Culture Blast page. Hopefully we will be back with you next week with some more new movies.
Okay, thank you, Michael, and stay tuned here on GABNet because there's more GABNet coming right up. Okay?